2.
We in the Diablo community had marveled in anticipation, and rightfully so, at the return of a new season. But for a little game catering to a small community at the edge of the internet, a still more glorious season awaits us. Not a tiny season, but a content patch. A patch filled with over 400 billion new items and skill combinations. An enormous update formed from new zones, new items, skill updates, gyms, sets, glyphs, bosses, and there is every reason to think that other exotic updates that we have not yet discovered will be found. But tonight, we talk about Season 2, here on episode 39 of the Westmarch Workshop.
Well played, sir. Well played. What's the reference there for those of us who don't watch or know anything?
That one is from Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan. Is he like some kind of comedian?
I am going to hope that you are joking.
Am I the comedian in this case?
Dun, dun, dun.
The name is very familiar. I feel like I always confuse him and Bob Saget, so they're probably very different people.
I guess I can see from the last name, but no, Carl Sagan was the original Cosmos series. He was huge into, space exploration, really helped push NASA and the government towards the first, rover missions to Mars, and was, one of the, headliners, or one of the guys that pushed through the Voyager programs and just interstellar travel, as well as just making physics and astrophysics interesting and showing that we as a society, our future is out there type thing.
Gotcha.
Very inspirational man.
That's really cool. And I also feel bad now because as a kid, you know how everyone has their, when I grow up I want to be an X. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be the next Buzz Aldrin. I wanted to be, the Armstrong and explore space. And then as I used to take like extra classes. I was such a nerdy kid, but I feel like everyone probably has already guessed that at this point because we're doing a friggin' podcast on Diablo.
And while we're on the topic,
yes,
just to segue just a little bit, I do have to recommend that The Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan is probably one of the greatest books you'll ever read, and I think everyone should read it because it is about critical thinking and looking with a certain level of skepticism at everything in the world. It will change your life.
The Demon Hunted World?
The Demon Haunted World.
Haunted World. Okay.
Yep.
Put it on my list of things to do when not Diabloing. So yeah, no, I used to love space basically, and then I found out you have to not have asthma and know science and things like that, and I was like, my life is not made to be an astronaut apparently. You also need vision and flying and all that stuff. So yeah, not for me. But pretty cool. Carl Sagan, Demon Haunted World.
Yep, there you go.
Starting the show out with some real life tips.
Yeah, dropping the real life knowledge before we get into the Diablo knowledge,
which could also possibly benefit you in real life.
It could.
If a zombie is coming at you, you should probably hit it with a blunt object.
Yeah, there you go. Just remember the one thing that I always learn from Dungeons and Dragons. It's like skeletons have damage resistance against slashing and piercing, and zombies have damage resistance against bludgeoning. There.
I dig it. Well, for all of you lollygaggers out there who are like, what are these dudes on? What are they talking about? I want to welcome you all to episode 39 of the Westmarch Workshop. A brand new season awaits? What the heck is the name of this episode?
A glorious
season awaits. Wow, I am bad. I apologize. I blame mostly the lack of sleep because of this glorious season that awaits us. But before I get into that, I'll let you take the stage, Mr. Nineball. How has your week in gaming been so far?
My week in gaming? Oh boy. So yeah, of course, there's this little thing called Season 2 for Diablo 3 that came out. I don't know if you heard about that. Not sure.
I think there was like a little update or something to the game.
Yeah, just tiny little thing. So that ate away most of my past week in gaming. I kind of put everything else. I do a little Heroes of the Storm on the side with the Heroes Power Hour podcast. But this week, unfortunately, set all of that to the wayside as For those that might have caught us on episode 38.5, we both did the live stream until 70.
Yes.
Which the podcast that we went through and uploaded was 2 hours, and that was only the beginning. I think we cut off at around like 40-ish.
Yeah, like level. Yeah.
Yeah, we ended up going until 4:30 in the morning for that one. So from 9 until 4.
9. And things got weird a little bit.
It ever so slightly. It did. It really did. And we were joined by some other members from the clan, Thibbledorf and Layla, that were kind enough to come and level with us and stayed through all the way to the end. Unlike last season, where we got a couple people that came and left, and another one joined and then left. It was just the two of us for the last few hours.
Indeed, yeah, it was a bit of a hodgepodge in season 1, but this one was a bit more concentrated effort, a focused effort, which I appreciated. I felt like it did go smoother in general.
Yeah, it has, and my luck so far has been weird.
You don't say.
I went into this season wanting to play a Jade Witch Doctor, and everybody, of course, knows my relationship with Tasker and Theos. So the first item that I gambled, not the first legendary that I found, but the first legendary that I gambled from Kadala, because I was just rolling gloves, was a Tasker and Theo.
It was hilarious.
The clan chat just exploded when they saw that good pop up.
Getting it out of the way early.
Yeah, just got it out of the way early. And it was like, okay, that's nice. That's still usable for this class, but I want to play a Jade Doctor, and it's just one item. So I'll just push that off to the side, and I'll continue to go through doing my thing, because I also found a Wormwood that was like one of like my third legendary after hitting 70. I got it, early Saturday.
It was really early, yeah.
Yeah, and just went through, started playing, and then last night I just was gambling from all of my rifts and found a Mask of Jerem. So it's just the game wants me to play a pet witch doctor. And it's just, no, I want to play a Jade, but I finally gave up, and so I just went and switched my build around to pets, and now I'm just starting to pick up a lot of steam there with rocking those two items. Just need some more Zunies, and I'm good to go.
Indeed. You must go to the pet Safar system. I didn't know how to really work that reference.
No, that was good. Pet Safari, I like it.
Pet Safari.
Yeah, Pet Safari, the Safari Zone.
Ooh, Pokemon.
I gotta go with some little treats and rocks. Did you ever do that? Go into the Safari Zone and just run around and do nothing but throw rocks at Pokemon?
I was never that cruel. I don't know this side of you, Nineball. Who are you? What have you done?
Yeah, what was it? I had blue and Scyther was in red, so the Safari Zone just made me mad.
I could see that. Yep, bad life choices on color there.
But I think that about sums it up. Oh, I guess the one other thing is for anyone that is interested in Heroes of the Storm, the other show that I do, the Heroes Power Hour, I definitely suggest that you check out last night's episode where we Twiz went through and did a whole big build out for Thrall, because I was playing Harlequin Nazebo, the Witch Doctor, and was wrecking face left and right. I still won't say that I am good at the game, but I was definitely, on just like
on a different level.
Yeah, on a different level that night, and just was destroying everybody with clown zombies. It was fun.
That's awesome. I like that you took your Witch Doctor affinity from Diablo for this season all the way into Heroes as well.
Yeah, I am taking the Witch Doctor to a whole nother level and transcending the game. So, yep.
Next podcast, we'll see you with traditional headdress and perhaps some sort of wormwood staff that you've crafted.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the few props that I don't have sitting around on my desk right now. But
I should have went with like a dagger. Last I saw you had a knife.
Yeah, post-apocalyptic Sesame Street.
There
if
it
you have
is.
to ask, don't ask.
Don't ask. You don't want to know.
Yep.
You can't afford it.
How about you, sir? How was your weekend gaming?
Oh,
what have you been doing with your time lately?
Someone in clan chat was calculating the amount of time played on my character and the amount of hours in this season, and it was a scary number. It was a scary ratio. I was like, holy crap! Don't do that. Don't show me those numbers because I don't want to know. But I've been playing a lot. This week just so happened to coincide with the week between leaving one job and starting another, and had other plans for it, but some things didn't quite turn out the way I wanted them to. So it ended up being a nice free session for just going crazy on Diablo for season two. So yeah, again, like you noted, we did episode 38.5 on Friday, leveled up, and then I kept actually I thought I was going to keep going that night. And I got really tired. I mean, we were like, if you guys want to check out the highlight or the past broadcast here on the Twitch channel, those last 5 hours, like, I don't know what we were talking about. There's some weird and maybe funny stuff. I think it was.
I I think I might actually have to go back and watch that just because I don't recall any of it.
That's what Lala was saying. I was talking to her the next day, and she was like, I don't remember half the things I said. I'm like, dude, I couldn't tell you what you said. I don't know. So some bonus entertainment there if you guys are curious. But yeah, so I think I ended up just staying up maybe another 30 minutes, contemplating if I wanted to play, and then like doing the whole like, oh gosh, I'm falling asleep. Oh gosh, I'm falling asleep, and just calling it quits. Woke up a few hours later, took a nice nap as I was calling it, and yeah, just started the grind. It's been going pretty well. I have managed to get the Lionhearted Conquest, which is the get to Greater Rift 35 conquest. I got that for
Nice.
hardcore. I was number 99, so just snuck into the top 100,
Nice, very nice.
which wasn't a goal, but hey, I'll take it. And maybe I'll try and get top 100 for all the others. They're starting to fill up a little bit as we were talking about before the show started. But other than that, yeah, man, just been grinding, getting
Yeah.
Paragon levels, getting gear. It was a really bad start to the season because I think it was either that 38.5 episode or 38 where we were talking, and I was noting that last season I spent almost 2 weeks, a week and a half in Roland's set. And that's what we were using, you and I, or that's what I was using when you and I were teaming up, trying to push the Greater Rifts. And I couldn't even find that this time around. Like, I was just having crappy luck. So I was running, though, if you looked at if anyone inspected my character on like Saturday, I had the weirdest fire build going for Crusaders. It was like a Maximus. What else? I had the Eternal Union. So I was basically just using like archers, and then I found I gambled an ancient Jecking board. That was like the first legendary that I
Oh,
gambled.
nice.
So I was using the fire rune combust on blessed shields. So I was throwing shields, and then I was using bowman that lasted forever, and then I had the little Maximus dude come out. And I actually didn't realize. I feel like people have said this in the past. I didn't realize how much that fire chain does for damage. Like, I feel like that was probably the biggest DPS contributor of all the stuff I had going for me while going up through the torments. So it was kind of hilarious just to work on the positioning battle of making sure the demon and I are between the enemy, or pyramiding, Eiffel towering the enemy, so that we could get the fire chain in there. But yeah, it was cool. It was good.
Yeah. I just want to throw out there, 'cause I don't know if you're going to mention it or not, but where is your Crusader right now?
Where's my Crusader? It's sitting in the menu screen. I'm not playing right now.
In reference to the leaderboards.
Oh, we're at rank 1.
Yeah, I just want to end that because you started with, oh, luck hasn't been going for me that well this season. I'm currently ranked number 1 on the leaderboards, and I have my full of cons set and the Blade of Prophecy and everything. But no, closing in on Paragon 400.
Yeah, no, it picked up. So I guess that's the second half of that story. Is eventually I got away from that weird ass build. Like drought this thing. I had a Fighters with no BOP. I was running like an ancient Stallguard's Decimator, which actually was doing some decent damage. But I just noticed the insanity of Blade of Prophecy's orange power. Like, it really just increases the crap out of your DPS. So it definitely was a noticeable difference. And I have to say, though, I have to give credit to the Molten Wildebeest Gizzard. It's kind of transitioning into some stuff I wanted to talk about later. But that gem is insanely powerful. Before I found any unities, before I found anything that was like huge damage mitigation, I got that thing up to level 25. And the absorb shield, it refreshes itself if you don't get attacked for whatever amount of seconds. I think it's 4 seconds. So that just keeps coming back, and then you get, kind of some free extra addition to your life with that shield. But then just the sheer power of the regen on the very first part of it that you get every time you level it up, it makes a huge difference for just as long as you have some mitigation. So like as a Crusader, of course, you have your shield and you have your armor and whatnot. And if you go into Prophet for Akrat's Champion, then you mitigate a ton of damage. But just making sure you don't get chunked down, like your life basically never moves. It's pretty insane. So I want to advocate for that gem because I know we've been pretty hard on the defensive gems in the past episodes. But like I was predicting, early season, I think they will definitely shine. And also in those support builds that we'll likely see come about in the higher 4-player, 3-player Greater Rifts.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I haven't gotten all of my gems yet, so it's one that I've been considering using while I'm waiting to get the unities and such.
Yeah, no, I definitely highly recommend it for anyone that wants to. I think even in general, before you get the shield, the level 25 on rank, even if you're just using it to kind of push your way up Greater Rifts so that you can get chances at leveling up your gems and stuff, I think it'll help in terms of just giving you that extra safety level, comfort level for the hardcore. But I think that's it in terms of weekend gaming. Yeah, things ended up working out okay in the end, but there's still a lot of improvement left.
And it all worked out okay.
Honestly, I wasn't even like targeting rank 1. I was just trying to level up my gems more than anything.
Yeah, sure. We believe you.
I mean, I'm always looking at the boards, but you know. Oh boy. But we'll see. Oh, actually, one thing that I did want to do this season is monitor how long it takes to get an Ancient Blade of Prophecy, because I still haven't found one yet. And it took me forever to find a Blade of Prophecy, like I was saying before I cut myself off. Droth was saying I was running a Frighter's Wrath with no BOP. It took me forever to find one, and the first one I found was garbage, and the second one I found was kind of okay. So that's what I'm running right now. But I found 2 so far this season. So the first week here, first half week, I guess, and no Ancient. So we'll see as the season progresses, if I find one, and how long it takes, how many BOPs we get before.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear that. And how long will it be? Hopefully it will not be your Tasker and Theo.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, it's gonna transfer this season now that you've got your TNT. What's your new white whale? Your thing you have to chase?
I guess it's going to be 2 pieces. It's the Quizzicautl and the Furnace. Are like the 2 big ones, in addition to, of course, just the Ring of Royal Grandeur and Jade Harvesters.
Gotcha. Quizzicautl, can you remind me what that does?
It's the one that halves the duration of your dots, but doubles their damage. So they do, the same damage over time, but it doubles their DPS.
Gotcha. Wow, that sounds really powerful with Jade. Sweet, man. Best of luck.
Yeah.
I'll be looking out for your little dings in the clan chat there to see if it ever pops up.
Yeah, we'll be seeing. I just hit Paragon 60, so I've got a little bit to catch up to you.
Just a little bit.
Just ever so slightly.
Actually, that's probably a good point to transition into the scant news items that we have. One thing that actually isn't even on the list of awesome show notes that you put together, I wanted to surprise you with, was something that I've been noticing. Like I was saying before the show started, I've been watching DatMod stream here and there, and he's been big right now on the greater rifting to get experience. And I guess what happened is that when they changed, well, a couple of things happened. When they changed the way that experience is calculated in greater rifts, because it's not tied to torment, there are some modifiers and bonuses that get multiplied like heavily. So anything like a ruby in your helm, hellfire ring, or like a cane set bonus, etc. And even the things such as like the Gem of Ease that gives you your bonus experience, and also the secondary stat on gear, monster kills grant like plus experience or whatever. All of those rolled together can give you an insane amount of EXP in like those middle high greater rifts. So like we're talking like 35 to 38 or so, like whatever you can do really efficiently. So what's been happening, at least in the softcore world, I've been noticing is you're getting like 4-player parties getting together, and they're just running these like 35s to low 40s and completing them in about like 5 minutes or so if they're getting good density. And it's like 2 to 3 Paragon levels per Greater Rift. And so you're just spamming these. And we're talking that same rate of acquisition, even in like the 400s, the 500s. So there are some players right now who already have Paragon like 600 and whatnot. And I guess monks are actually the best class for it because they can wear the most pieces that get you that bonus experience.
While still maintaining, their set piece in order to clear fast.
Yeah, and they relegate themselves mostly to the support role within those groups so that they can wear. So it's basically like Leech Monk.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting caveat that the Greater Rifts have kind of found a new niche in terms of, T6 is probably going to be the place where you really want to go for your legendaries and gearing and just general acquisition of items. And now that Greater Rifts, if you choose to go this route, is going to really be where you kind of pump the Paragon. You can still get good Paragon in T6 doing it efficiently, but I guess it's a factor of like 10 or 5 maybe in terms of efficiency from T6 to these Greater Rifts being run like this.
Yeah, and I guess that's just one of those. I see that being fixed just because of how ridiculous the XP is. Just at least in terms of them changing the formula for the experience gains. There's a lot of that, if you're going through and you're rolling, like Greater Rift 35 or even 40 in 5 minutes, the amount of blood shards that you're getting are insane at that point, because you're getting more than you normally would for a Torment 6 Rift. So, I don't know, your legendary acquisition probably isn't going to be that far behind, rolling Torment 6 at a similar speed.
It's actually a good point, yeah. The blood shards, or when you factor those in.
And going from some of the points that we were talking about in last episode, just they mentioned at the tavern talk that they kind of wanted to they don't want so much of the in-game focus to be Greater Rifts, and they're trying to find something else to do. And I imagine that seeing even more of the game focus on now, it's like it used to be Greater Rift for competition and for getting your gems and such, but most of your power still comes out of Torment 6.
Right.
Now, no, not really.
Now we're pushing even further into the Greater Rift dark side of things.
Yeah, they don't want to make a Torment 7, but the Greater Rifts are Torment 7 because the rewards scale up. They continue to scale past the Torment 6 drop chances and such, so you get the higher rate of ancient items, you get the more blood shards, more experience. It's like the only thing that you're not really getting is gold.
Right, yeah. But that kind of scales up a little bit too, as long as you're doing them enough, and you're not spending it as much.
Yeah, but Torment 6 you can just run through with a Boon of the Hoarder, it will never compare.
Very true, very true. But that's an interesting proposition you make in terms of not wanting to increase the difficulty, so sticking the top, in quotes, at T6, but then having, obviously, the scaling continue in Greater Rifts and people being able to do them really efficiently, really easily now. It makes you wonder, will they do what you said initially and change that EXP formula to kind of bring it more in line and maybe not make Greater Rifts so far and away the best for that mode of gaining EXP, or B, if they'll actually maybe not go back, but reevaluate their stance on adding new difficulties. I still think that it's an interesting thing to do if you do add like a T7 through T10 or whatever you want to do, because there is that the problem of further fracturing the community, because obviously, like playing the game a crap ton like I have been, being one of the first people in the clan up to T6, it's kind of like I want to play with people because I get the bonuses of multiplayer, but at the same time, like I don't necessarily want to like go down and slog in T2 with people, because the probably going up to T6 by myself will end up with more reward than going
Mm-hmm.
down to where everyone currently is. So I like have to play that waiting game, and it only gets exacerbated further when you have four
By
more
because
difficulties.
yeah, by the especially, and then even then, by the time someone actually does manage to catch up and is Torment 6 capable, they're going through and clearing a rift in 12 minutes, whereas you're doing it in 5. So even just going and grouping up with them, you're still pulling yourself back.
Right? Yeah, you end up in a carry position.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a curious thing. So I wonder if we'll see any blue posts on this going forward, because it's been a kind of the low murmur if you've been like on Twitch a bit, and I think it's transferred over to some of the official forum posts and things being like, there people are botting, look at these crazy Paragon levels. It's like, nah, man,
Hmm.
this thing is happening right now.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But actually, talking about what the devs might do, was there anything? Because we did talk quite a bit in that episode 38.5 for those who saw it on the tavern talk. That was kind of the crux of our discussion there. Was there
Hmm.
anything left over that you wanted to hit or highlight?
As far as the tavern talk goes, not really. I think that about summed it up.
Yeah, yeah. I think we pretty much killed it over there.
Hmm.
Just I don't want to beat a dead horse, but again, it was a lot of the this is on our radar, and I think one of the funniest things that stuck with me was someone in Twitch chat being like, but where is the radar?
Yeah.
Where? We understand all these things are on it, but where? So
Hmm.
I think in general people just want more specifics in terms of like directed being basically being able to say, okay, we know that you're working on X and you've given us some scant timeline. It may or may not be a super specific one, but at least we kind of have an idea. But of course, that all goes back to what we were talking about before, where they make these pseudo promises, promises in quotes, and then get taken to the ringer when they don't deliver within that time window or whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, that's probably their biggest hurdle with transparency is just the fact that they can't say what it is that they're working on, especially looking at the back of the development of Reaper of Souls. Do you remember? Uh, I'm about to ask you. Do you remember this thing that I can't remember the name of? I think it was the Devil's Hand, the
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
cards.
yep.
Yeah, you know that got data mined and everyone was making theories about it and all this other type of stuff. It had these cards and Zoltan Cool was involved and all this other types of crap, and then it never came anywhere. And then it's just like, well, what happened? And what it ended up being is just, well, the system was clunky. It wasn't terribly rewarding, and we realized it's more or less the same thing as bounties. So we just took all of the rewards and we put them in bounties, and that's your act specific legendaries were the Devil's Hand rewards. That's all it was.
All right.
You know, had you know, but had they gone through and been transparent and gotten to the point where, oh, well, we're just removing the system. Imagine if they had been talking about it and this is how this works and all this other type of stuff, and then they just like, no, it's gone. Yeah, what would the reaction have been?
So
Even
much
though
nerd rage.
exactly, and we would end up where we are now, and it's still obviously it's worked, but
Yeah.
what can you do?
No, it's true. It's true, and it's so funny that you use that specific example because I recall they had an event shortly after that was data mined. Maybe it was, oh, I'm gonna blank on it. I don't know, but there was something, and I just remember people asking about Devil's Hand, and maybe it was BlizzCon. I'm not sure, but it was a question that kept coming up because it had been data mined, and it was so funny
Hmm.
that it was something that they obviously weren't quite ready to talk about because it was never revealed as a feature or anything like that, similar to what you had
Hmm.
just been saying. But obviously, once you get a whiff of it, there's so much curiosity and there's so much we want the details. We want to,
Gotta know.
yeah, and we want to theory
Got to
craft.
know.
So it's funny. You really it's they have to be careful, and it sucks because it's such a nuanced position where they have to be careful of what they kind of reveal to us before they're ready and sure about it. But at the same
Hmm.
time, if they're not saying anything, then there's just going to be complaints no matter what. It seems kind of like doomed if they do, doomed if they don't.
Yep. Yep. The challenges of game design. I guess it's more just the challenge of being in the spotlight and having, your every word daunted on by millions.
Right? It's like it's
Literally millions.
literally. It's like the challenge of being a human, of
Yeah.
interacting with other humans,
Yep.
also known as life. Ugh. But we could do a whole podcast on that. Maybe we'll have a separate Blizz Pro Why Is Life So Hard podcast
Yeah, we could go through and join JR's.
on the real life respec.
Yeah, real life respec. Go through and talk about life choices.
Right.
hmm but
Dial us
I
back
guess
in.
I think the only other thing that we have to cover with news is the Play Your Way Thursday.
Yeah, that went up for
Um,
vote, right?
Yep, that went up for vote. The voting ended on the 16th, so it ended on Monday. And the was it Pryflies?
Pyro
Pyrolysis.
Rally. Yeah, that was a tough one
Yeah.
to eke out.
Yeah, is his wizard build is the one that won. So it's a lightning fire wizard build, and so that one we haven't gotten confirmation yet because what happened a few times is that they couldn't get the person to actually do the stream,
Hmm.
and so they ended up having to do the stream on one of the other people. I mean that's not to put anything against your build. That's not your build. Your build ended up getting showcased on the Play Your Way, or at the time Theorycraft Thursday.
Yeah, well, and think about this too. Both times that has happened, it's been a wizard that has won, and then it was a crusader that ended up being in second place and got showcased instead. So there's some weird theory. There's some weird
Mm-hmm.
something or other going on here. I don't know if you have the results pulled up, dude, but do you know who's in second?
The Demon Hunter.
Oh, okay.
The pet build Demon Hunter.
So we'll at least buck that one trend, which is good. But it's weird that the Wizards keep winning but then not showing up. And it's also kind of hilarious because another thing from the Twitch chat on that tavern talk was everyone saying rip Wizard, Wizards are dead, they're going to be so crappy in season 2, etc. We're not getting any love. But they're winning all the player ways and all the like Theorycraft Thursdays. People obviously care about the Wizard quite a bit. And I think that's got to be in large part due to just Jh's massive presence in that community and what they've built over there. So props to them for all of that, of course. But
They're just vote brigading. That's all.
vote brigade. It's so true. But they have a powerful army, man. Those Wizards
the
are
Jedi.
serious. Yeah, they're no joke. So it'll be curious. I think that their time, and actually this is something that maybe it doesn't tie into any one specific topic that we want to discuss, but I think people are going to be I was just thinking about this before we started the podcast. I think people are going to be even more interested in the end of season 2 than season 1 because it means patch 2.2 is coming and it means those sets are coming. And so the reason I kind of looped all that together was I think that's going to be another a possible coming out party for the Wizards once they get that Delcyr's Opus set. Seems really interesting for them. I don't know if it'll topple Firebirds. There's probably a lot of questions still there. But I think just in general, there's going to be a lot of when is season 2 going to be over? As soon as the novelty and the hype wears off.
That's going to be kind of like the bar, as it were. This is what's currently the best. If you're going to introduce a new set, you're going to need to have something that at least competes, if not is slightly better than.
Mm-hmm.
So
like slight power creep introduced every time, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of knock out the old stuff, out with the old, in with the new.
I guess to continue on, there was one other thing that I did want to mention, and we are continuing to get chatter about the blood shard limit.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course it was talked about a little bit on the stream, and they went through and they said that they have been discussing and talking about maybe upping it to 750 or maybe upping it to 1,000, but it's in some way based on you have to unlock it. It's not just given to you, but is just going through and saying I understand, I know how to play the game, I understand these mechanics, so you can reward me with that knowledge by upping the limit, because one of their reasonings for having the lower limit is obviously they have more information or more access to this information, and apparently people will sit on blood shards and never use them even when they're at cap because they don't know where to go to use them.
I would love to see what percent of players that is. I really want a Diablo 3 infographic for Reaper of Souls.
It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting. I want to see how many gallons of blood shards have been dropped, through the game.
How much? What's the volume of one blood shard?
I have no idea.
We need some
There's a question.
further research.
Yes. But so they are talking about potentially upping it to 750, maybe 1,000, and just they got touched on again.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just I believe this was one that Wyatt actually hopped on a thread in Reddit to discuss further.
That's right.
And just it's that 750 or 1,000. It keeps coming up. So it's something. Obviously, it's not set in stone, but just the way that all Blizzard development teams work, I don't think that they would be publicly talking about it if they weren't already, kind of like 75 or 80% of the way there.
I was gonna say like more than halfway there. Yeah.
It's like it's something that has already cleared the first couple of hurdles and is kind of just churning there because they're openly discussing it. It still could not come in. Remember, PvP is coming in patch 1.1, but it's something that at least has cleared the first couple of hurdles and might actually come through. So there's all those people wanting to have the increase to the blood shard limit. There might be light at the end of the tunnel.
It's exciting, man, and that is one change I would be more than happy to see mid-season. Okay, I'll allow it. I'll allow it because it's more for everyone. Everyone wins. Oh man, so yeah, that makes me happy, makes me excited. So I would love to see that go down, and I love the chatter. I love the blues and the devs chattering as well with it. It seems positive. Seems like we're getting there finally, winning that war. And because you mentioned that and some of the statistics and background stuff that they have, I wanted to mention the tech convo that we had before the show, where we were talking about some anniversaries coming up.
Oh yeah,
and the launch of Reaper of Souls 1 year ago is next month, not too far away.
Yeah, it's a little over a month away. The 1 year anniversary for Reaper of Souls, that'll be coming up on March 25th. So I don't know, they for Diablo's 1 year anniversary, they just kind of did like nothing huge, no streams or anything like that, but that was when the development team was still kind of in a lockdown status. I imagine
things are a little shaky.
Yeah, we might see some stuff from Blizzard. I don't know for certain, but the big one that I do expect that we'll see something of, like a live stream or developer talk or something, will be coming up in May 15th. Because it will be the 3-year anniversary for Diablo 3.
That's right.
So that's one I expect thematically we'll just see something new and interesting come from.
All right, no, I'm really excited because you got to do one of those dev streams for the anniversary. You had. The barrel guy? Was that yours?
No, that was not me. I think that was actually Thunderclaw.
That was sorry, I was confusing you two. Yeah, it was Thunderclaws. You had story people then maybe, right?
Yeah, for mine it was dang it, trying to remember. It was Brian Kindergig and
sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no problem. I always forget his name, but he's one of he was the lead. I remember his title. He's like the lead world designer, and I cannot remember the name.
I can see his face in my in my mind. But yeah, that was. I'm assuming you're probably like looking up right now, but that was just a really cool stream because there was so much extra. Like if you were into that, and when they had the 4 different streams, because it was one happening every hour, and even our veteran. Used to be here host Archon, he had one with the big guy himself, Josh Mosquera. And it was just so cool to see them interacting with the community on that really informal basis, kind of just a big celebration of everything that had gone down and gotten us to that 2-year mark. And I was really excited to see those and hear the things, the little tidbits. It was I think I came home like halfway through them, so then I actually went back and watched VODs, and it was kind of cool to put it on in the background while playing the game, being like, oh, I just saw a barrel. Let me figure out what they're talking about with these physics and stuff, and it was really cool.
There we go. Nevik in chat said it. It's Leonard Boyarsky.
Yes, that's the name. Yes. Perfect.
Yes.
So yeah, it'd be.
And what was her name? There's another person from Blizzard. I don't remember. She was the short one.
Oh, you had three?
Yeah, it was what is it? Nev something?
Oh
Emma.
yeah.
Yeah, I
What's her
don't remember her name.
face? I think
Yeah.
she's in the. I think I killed her a few times. Maybe she might not exist anymore.
Yeah, that could be. That could be.
Oh, never list this. We love you. We troll
Uh,
you
yeah, we're just returning the favor of how much she loves to troll us all the time.
all the time. But yeah, hopefully they do something either similar or like that again. You'll have to let us know if you get the tag for a repeat in a few months here.
Oh, definitely. I would expect your name to probably be going through and floating around there.
That'd be exciting, man. I'd love to.
Hmm.
I'd love to do something. Either if it were like the two of us and a dev and Nev or something or other. Get some cool chatter going. A
Yeah.
little gameplay stream because the game like doing the thing on Friday was actually a lot of fun. Once I figured out like okay, I can actually like be okay and play and also talk. And the third part is maybe the Twitch chat, but I assume on a stream like that, like it'd just be too crazy to even try and monitor.
Oh yeah, it's hard to go through because they'll be pulling questions from Twitch chat. In scenarios like that, they always have. They have someone else monitoring it to do it. But I during our stream, I had fun going through, and just paying attention to, getting
All the craziness.
all the just taking some questions from the Twitch chat and the play your way that I was on, that was one of those ones where it's like I was really trying hard, like not to die with my character because I was so badly geared and we were like Greater Rift 30 or so. It was just I couldn't pay attention.
You tunnel vision, man.
Yeah, I was just tunnel visioning. It was just taking too much of my concentration to ask questions.
I hear you.
Hmm.
It makes you wonder how some of these big time streamers do it every single day, man.
Yeah.
Secret I've yet to unlock.
With practice.
Indeed. Practice makes perfect.
Hmm.
All right, so you want to transition into our next special topic of conversation here on some season 2 things?
Yeah, I guess just with this being our first show actually into season 2, we wanted to discuss some like best practices, tips, tricks, and things to help you out in season 2. Because it's probably one of the biggest questions that we've been getting is just like, oh, what do I do this? What do I do here? How do I gear? What advice do you have? And so that is what we are here for.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, like, some of the stuff, people will be like, oh, well, it's going to be outdated because people are already at 70 stuff. But there are actually people who haven't started this season yet, so this could be interesting info to them, or maybe even convince them to come over and leave non-seasonal to start up a seasonal character, and now they'll have tips and tricks to get going even faster than they thought they might.
Yeah. So I guess the first thing, obviously, since it is the new season, one of the biggest ones that we've gotten is, do you have any advice for leveling?
Yes, some leveling tips.
Yep, and that one I actually have to go to back to I think it was Rankill's Reddit post.
Mm-hmm.
And he going through and talking that one of the most efficient ways if you're going to be leveling solo is like this. One of the biggest secrets is hard difficulty.
Yes.
Not normal, not expert, not master. Hard is just that sweet spot of being able to maintain kill speed and getting a decent XP bonus when going through, and just destroying and leveling up your character. He had in his post just a couple of very good bounties to go through, and pretty much just playing 100% in adventure mode. You can completely forget about the campaign unless you're just playing the game for the first time and still need to unlock adventure mode.
Right.
But then I imagine that you're probably not listening to this podcast at that point. And if you are, well, there you go. Beat campaign and then go into adventure mode. Glad to be of service.
Right. Yeah, the cursed chest events, the ones that give you the kill 100 monsters in a limited amount of time, those are really good for EXP early on.
As well as just the ones where you have to clear a level, such as like go through and, or clear level 2 of the Scavenger's Den or Den of the Fallen, things like that, that they give a huge amount of experience into ignore any of the ones which is kill a boss, because they
Right.
give very minimal amounts of XP.
And take a lot of time. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I mean the happy medium there in terms of efficiency versus just kind of gearing up for the long haul. Like we were still completing our boss kills and the whole like Act 1 bounty on Friday just because it was going to get us more blood shards or sorry, more rift fragments, and kind of looking past level 70 at that point.
Yeah.
Reaching level 70 at that point and saying, okay, once I arrive, I want to, be kitted out with rift fragments to kind of jump into rifts right away and to be able to have some baseline level of gear so that I'm not just, kind of floundering around, and maybe can make that jump up to from normal to Torment 1 a little faster. So it depends on where you want to put the emphasis, because obviously you can get through 1 through 70 rather quickly, but then you might not quite be on the same curve as players who didn't get through 1 through 70 very quickly but set themselves up to get from normal level 70 up to Torment 1 level 70 and Paragon levels, etc.
Yeah, because as you're mentioning, that was one of the benefits of going and just chain running bounties the entire time, from 1 through 70. So I think, when we got to level 70, I had something around like 130, rift keys,
Yeah,
or the key fragments. So that just sets you off perfectly fine at level 70. In terms of absolute efficiency, you want to use those keys in Torment or higher, just because you have the better drops coming from there. But I
hmm,
mean, it's a great way of just chain running 20-30 rifts once you hit 70 to get geared for Torment and go from there.
exactly. And having those rift key fragments there is essential, just because once you do make that leap, and even if it's kind of a slow leap into Torment 1, being able to clear a T1 rift to get that greater rift key, that's going to be essential, because then you'll want to
Hmm.
do the slow rolling of the greater rifts, because there's not a guaranteed chance to get a greater rift key when you kill a Torment 1 Rift Guardian. And so what I'm talking about here is after you clear Torment 1 Rift or any Torment Rift, you hence to get a Greater Rift fragment, which is the thing that takes you into your trials, your realm of trials that are so beloved and maybe not so beloved by the community.
Hmm.
And so on T1, as a fresh character, you kind of want to get in there as soon as possible. And obviously, there's a little RNG in terms of getting in there. But what you'll do is you'll go back, you'll port into the realm of trials, use that key, and then instantly TP out so that you fail it and you get a level 1 greater rift key.
Hmm.
From that takes you back to normal difficulty. So, you just did Torment 1, and even if you were kind of smashing your head against it, going a little slowly, you're going to go right back to that normal difficulty in your Greater Rift level, in your Greater Rift 1 key. And the whole point there is to do them so that you're killing the Rift Guardian with 4 minutes and 30 seconds or less on the timer. And so normally what people might do is rush through the first part of the Greater Rift, and then port out once you spawn the Rift Guardian, go do a couple of bounties, and then come back. Like, you have to note the time, of course, to know, like, okay, I have
Hmm.
11 minutes left, so I can do 7 minutes worth of bounties, and then come back in, kill the Rift Guardian. And what that does for you is notch your next key that you get when you upgrade the key to the just one level up. So you go from Greater Rift 1 to Greater Rift 2, etc., and so forth. And the reason you're doing this is because every time you kill a Greater Rift Guardian and you don't have a legendary gem, you have a guaranteed chance to get one until you have all 17 of them.
Hmm.
And so that's just,
And
yeah, go ahead.
I was just about to say, and yeah, that's the whole point of going and slow rolling, is to just get all of those gems off of just a single Greater Rift key. You don't have to go and spam multiple Greater Rift keys and do just a couple here and there. Getting a hodgepodge of gems. It's just to go in, get all your gems, and then from there you can start working on leveling them up.
Right. And those are really going to be what help you kind of bump up through Torment, because you can reroll your rare jewelry a little easier to get the sockets than you can from your legendary jewelry. So obviously you're going to be in rares probably early on. And so once you can get, a Bane of the Powerful or Bane of the Trapped or something, if you can proc the Bane of the Trapped with some of your skills, those are just going to exponentially increase the damage output of your character and kind of help
Hmm.
give you that extra push into like a Torment 2, Torment 3. And then as you keep going up, your rate of reward is going to increase. So everything just kind of snowballs in effect.
Hmm. So that's another one, and going and touching on just some of the comments that you made during your week in gaming is just that wildebeest gizzard is something that's great while you're waiting to get your Unity and Immortal Follower combo going in order to push the higher grade of rifts. It gives you an obscene level of survivability that will help you, at least at the beginning of the season.
Hmm.
And like you were mentioning, Bane of the Trapped, probably one of the best gyms out there for
Period. Yeah.
most classes, period. It's one that is useful the second you put it on, so long as you have a way of proccing it. So if you're using a cold build or anything that has a lot of slows, it's an absolute must-have gem. And then Bane of the Powerful is another one that's just good for all classes in the beginning. If some like the Taiguk gets, that one is a lot better at higher levels for the stacking, or because you need to get to level 25 to unlock the like the armor bonus and such. So the Bane of the Powerful is just a good default gem for you to start off with as well, no matter what your build or spec is. And it gives you, a good amount of power even at level 0.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's really interesting too because I don't even want to break it into like beginner gems versus advanced gems or anything like that. But when you mention something like the Taiguk, it definitely is a gem that's kind of works better for late game or kind of more once you're well geared because you have more control over your resource, which is exactly
Hmm.
what dictates how you get those stacks because it's every time you spend resource, you get a stack for that Taiguk. And obviously, as a newly, freshly rolled character, you're kind of starved for things that help you either mitigate your resource or just help you control it. So as you get more gear, as you get like your Reaper's Wraps or something, then it becomes a little more predictable on how you might use a gem like that. Whereas Bane of the Powerful is just like you're going to kill elites, so you're always going to be benefiting from it.
Yep. And, when you go through and you get, obviously at this point, in order to get a Greater Rift key, you've been capable of clearing Torment 1. And so that will probably get you, I want to say, at least you'd be able to do up to around Greater Rift to like 9 or 10.
Sounds right.
Without like actually having to push the difficulty up until Torment 2. You should be, at least okay from there. So that will get you about half of your gems. And at that point, you've essentially cleared 10 rifts. You've gotten a ton of bounties. You should, be able to go through, farm up another key, and just do the slow roll one more time, and you've got all of your gems, and you're good to go from there.
And it's also worth saying too that doing the greater rifts and the slow rolling, you actually get legendaries at the end
Oh
too.
yeah, and blood shards,
And blood
which
shards.
translates into more legendaries.
Exactly.
Crafting mats, and it's a good way of just going through and kind of like doing, again, I guess, kind of just as like a recap, bounties till 70, and then from there kind of just hit up maybe some more bounties. You can find a lot of public games doing level 70 normal bounties,
Hmm.
just because people are going through and farming for Ring of Royal Grandeurs, quickly on normal while they get trying to get themselves geared for Torment. And then as soon as you feel comfortable, just you can spend like a third of your keys on just running normal rifts, get into Torment, run rifts until you get your first two Greater Rift keys, and then slow roll them until you have all of your gems, and you're more or less you're set from there. You should be more than easily capable of kicking it up to Torment 2, Torment 3, and actually starting to level up some of your gems at that point.
Agreed. And one thing I do want to throw into the pot of consideration there is kind of my closing point. Can't overlook crafting too, because
Oh,
some of
of
those
course.
some of those plans start to drop pretty frequently upon hitting level 70. So
Hmm.
you're looking at something like Ogchilds, of course,
Of
um,
course.
or leave.
Og guilds, for those not in the
Yes,
know of how it's supposed to be pronounced.
yes, all guilds, of course.
Hmm.
Captain Crimson's really good just because you get some early CDR, their guaranteed CDR, which is kind of tough to come by cooldown reduction.
Hmm.
Um, and with
I want
Asher's
I
is
want to
good.
say, yeah, sure. So another one is, eventually you do want to go and play through the story mode at least once. You can just bum rush it through on normal. You get a guaranteed legendary off of Malthael, but you also get Reaper's Wraps as a
Hmm.
guaranteed drop off of him, and that one is a very good crafted item that's usable by most classes in the beginning because it gives you resources for every health globe that you pick up. So that's another great crafted item to get, and it's a guaranteed drop. You just have to kill Malthael in story mode.
And agreed, yeah, that's another great early starter, and also for some builds, end game
Yeah,
item too.
yeah, exactly. So you roll a good pair of those, and it'll last you for the rest of the season.
Indeed. But yeah, just in case you still are getting those legendary drops, but they're just not quite hitting the sweet spot for you, or they're not upgrades. You can smash those down and craft some stuff up. So that's definitely something to keep in the back of your head as well.
Hmm.
So let's see. That was both leveling and gearing tips in a way.
Yeah, that it was.
Unless there was something more specific you want to do for gearing. I mean, for each class, it's gonna differ a little bit, but obviously targeting your specific class sets, like like you were saying at the start of the show, you're very much wanting to be a Jade Doctor, so you're going to be looking for your Jade set pieces, and I assume, of course, using Kadala mainly to dictate where you focus farm on that.
Yeah, one of the things that I was doing with Kadala is just, um, rolling a slot until I got a legendary for it. Because with the exception, I want to say, of gloves, rings, and amulet, that pretty much no matter what you find, as long as it's legendary and it rolled your main stat, it's going to be better than what it was that you're using if it's a rare.
Right.
With the other ones that can roll the trifecta stats, obviously you have to get at least a couple of those stats for it to compare. But it's roll shoulders until you get a legendary, rolled helm until you get a legendary, chest until you get a legendary, and then just moving on, and kind of, even though you're not going to have so much of a build to start off with unless you're crafting some other things like Ogchild and such, it just gets your power level up there.
Absolutely. And actually, we're getting the Peanut Farm in chat here, which is always so knowledgeable, is letting us know that in adventure mode you can actually get Reaper's Wraps from killing Malthael too.
Oh, I did not know that. I thought that was story mode only. But there you go.
So I guess you can get the plan in adventure mode, but if you want that guaranteed legendary, you still have to go through the campaign.
Yep.
Get that furnace, right?
Yeah. Get that furnace. Blaze can tell you all about that.
Oh yeah.
Furnaces are guaranteed drops in story mode on normal, apparently.
A true legendary drop right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think those are all good parts in terms of talking about some of the just general ideas, things that help you kind of strap yourself up, because that's the whole thing in terms of starting a season. I know a lot of people get frustrated when they see some of their friends maybe jumping ahead in power level above them, and they're thinking like, am I doing anything wrong or whatever? Like, you're probably not doing anything wrong. There's probably just more things you can do efficiently or better for yourself. And also, of course, we're all slaves to RNG, so at the same time you could be doing everything perfectly and still just not getting quite the right drops. So, basically just play. Play a ton, play as much as you can, and do things in a mostly efficient manner, and you should see your character progress. And if you have questions, send emails and texts and tweets to Westmarch Workshop, the WM Workshop on Twitter, Westmarch Workshop at blizzpro.com, and we will answer and help you out, contribute to this segment some more.
Yeah. Do you want to go through and cover just like a breakdown specifically for certain classes?
Sure. Yeah, I did note that you had some maybe some like early on in the gearing process builds that we might want to throw out there.
Yeah, there's one that nice like beginning Witch Doctor build that I found that it's safe, it's effective, and you don't really need any gear at all in order to actually, use this build efficiently.
I'm curious.
This one, it's a simple build. It's just for a fresh level 70 Witch Doctor, and this is to get you up on your feet. It is Plague of Toads, Brain of Toads, Spirit Walk, Jaunt, Zombie Dogs, Rabid Dogs, Piranhas, Piranhanado, Acid Cloud, Blob, Bomb. I love that one.
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, and then Gargantuan, Big Stinker. And what this is, obviously you've got a lot of pets and so you have a lot of passive damage.
Yeah.
This one, it's going to be doing a lot of damage because you've got just it's poison. Everything is doing passive damage. All of your pets can go through. They kind of act as body blockers for you and trying to keep the enemies occupied. And then you supplement that with the passives. Obviously, Fetish Sycophants, Midnight Feast, Pierce the Veil. And then if you're softcore, Zombie Handler. If you're hardcore, Spirit Vessel. That's just to go through and get you a good start. And it's not really gear dependent. It just has a lot of sources of damage. It keeps you safe by giving you all the pets to kind of tank for you. And to build from there, you just basically stack int and vit until you actually get to the point where you can care about other stats like crit and crit damage in order to get into Torment. But as you just kind of get your base damage and base health up to a good survivable level, and then you can take the jump into Torment and start getting crit and crit damage in order to like really up yourself until you start getting those set pieces, whether it be, you can branch out from Jade if you get lucky there, or obviously, if you get Tasker and Theos or Mask of Jerem, or start getting some Zuni's pieces, you can just continue the pet build from there.
There you go. Yeah, that sounds really awesome in terms of just getting a foot in the door. So, go ahead.
And I just wanted to also say that I got this build from the Diablo 3 Witch Doctors subreddit. It's one of their posted builds that they have, and this was submitted by Aura Hosai. Orasoy. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. And he gave it, basically, it's a nice, good starter build, and it's something that to go through and check out. And it's it's over on it's Diablo 3 Witch Doctors is the name of the subreddit. You can find it if you go to the Diablo 3 or just the Diablo subreddit. You can find the link to the Witch Doctor class subreddit, and then it's right there, new Witch Doctor build, or guide to new Witch Doctors, and it has a pretty good explanation. So just want to give credit where credit is due.
Right on. Of course, I wanted to speak towards the Crusaders since that's my bread and butter. They also have a really active, last I had checked anyways, really good subreddit. I know Dead Set, who's now an MVP over on the EU official forums for Diablo 3, contributes a lot of stuff in there, and maybe sometimes does like gear checks and things like that. So yeah, it's just a really active community if you want to go in there and just have questions about different skills, how they work. You just want more Crusader knowledge. But in terms of early life for Crusaders, it's a little harder than how the WDs have it, for instance, because we're such a gear dependent class. Like, you really have to kind of base what you'll do on what you pick up. So like I was talking about early in the show, I ended up going with Blessed Shield, which I hadn't used like maybe 6 months ago, more than that, on a Crusader that had found Gerfalcon's Foot and the Jecking board, which were just like insane to find before. But because I gambled that Shield early, that was kind of the direction I took it. And I think that's probably one of the first pieces of advice I'd give is once you have blood shards, maybe the first thing you'll do for Crusader is gamble a shield, because it's going to help push you in a certain direction. Any of those powers that you can get, like a Frighter's Wrath, taking the cooldown off, Unrelenting Phalanx, doubling your Phalanx, or Blessed Shield, adding more ricochets, etc. It's just going to make one of your skills way better, so it'll already dictate a certain spender that you'll use. Or non-spender, well, kind of non-spender in the terms of Phalanx. But I think once you start to solidify that slot, then you can kind of start to build stuff around it. So as a Crusader, you can use either really good one-hander or a good two-hander, whatever drops for you, and just set your passive between Heavenly Strength and I guess I'm forgetting the one-hander one because I so rarely use it anymore. But it's the very first passive that you unlock, and I feel bad for not remembering it. But you oscillate between those as you find better versions of a one-hander or a two-hander that increase your DPS. But I personally really like using Phalanx Bowman in pretty much every build that's early before I get into concept or anything like that, because again, Crusader's super gear dependent and also really tough to manage resources. Like, we have a lot of heavy spenders. So Bowman is excellent because there's no spent. There's no cost to it, so it's just a cooldown skill. And it's a relatively short cooldown, and they do a ton of damage. They're from range, so it's safe. They auto target for you, so it's kind of like fire forget. It's just really awesome ancillary damage. And basically, you hit an extra button and you say, "I want more DPS."
Man, I wish I had that. I want more DPS.
Well, just press the "I want more DPS" button.
It's also a nice throwback to one of the big builds for when back in the launch of Reaper that was popular among Crusaders.
Talk about that Zeus Satyr?
Yes. I just remember that was one of the things that they just nerfed constantly in the beginning, as bowmen were just too good.
They were, yeah. And then they brought them back up a little bit, but never to their fully formed glory. And I didn't even get to experience that because that was beta stuff that you were lucky enough to test. And I remember, I think Monstrous was also talking about that to some degree.
I must be fusing the beginning of Reaper with the beta again. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. But yeah, they definitely did tone those down a bit, but they're still good. So highly recommend throwing them into a Crusader build. Fervor is the passive, yes. So that's the one-hander passive that they actually reworked a little bit to be better. Other than that, though, I mean, you're gonna take some sort of generator because you will want to be getting your resources back. So I like Smite early on because it does it targets multiple enemies and it's also from range. So again, good safety, putting distance between you and the enemies. There's also a rune on there. It's Reaping, which gives you stacks of life per hit, life per second or life per hit. I think it's life per second actually, but it's insane. It's like 4,000 plus life per second per stack, and you get like 4 stacks, and you just need to keep using Smite in order to keep it up. So if you ever get into trouble, it's just like an insane amount of mitigation or healing, I should say.
Yeah.
Of course, Accurate's champion. Firestarter is usually pretty good because your bowman will auto target stuff and then hit them, and then it'll spark the fire, which is the part of Firestarter. And so they'll get that dot on them, and then you can actually go, once you start to get legendary gems, further amplify that with like a gem of efficacious toxin or a pain enhancer if your crit damage or if your crit chance is high enough at that point. But that's starting to get like more into further on in your gear progression. So basically, yeah, just kind of targeting low cost skills. Blessed Hammer I actually used for the first time this season ever. And it was really good early on just because it has a low cost and they do decent amount of damage. You just have to kind of get used to the swirly motion of them. But
yeah, when the lower difficulties before the enemy health starts, ramping up way above what the damage scaling is.
Exactly. But for the most part, honestly, like I want to say, like this is, and I always say this at the start of the season, and I say always because I've done it twice now.
Yeah.
But
before.
Right. I love it just because it's one of the best times to experiment and maybe use a skill that like we'll never see in endgame build because it's just not that great. But before you have other stuff or before you have gear or a concept that kind of dictates what you're going to do, you just might just rediscover a love for, I don't even know, a shield bash or something that just lets you run around. It actually gives you movement speed in quotes because once you target something way across the screen, you'll run super quick over to it. And that's just cool. I mean, it's stuff that you might not ever see again once you get to level 70. So experiment.
Well, I think that will do it. We'll kind of like dub this one, our good beginner specs part 1, and then we'll talk about some more classes next week, and kind of cover more beginning specs for all the classes as we go on.
I dig it.
Well, moving on from there, I think it's about time for community feedback.
Time for the feedback. It's been too long because we didn't do any during the special episode 38.5 that we threw out there. So
yeah.
It's been about 2 weeks, and we have inbox that reflects that it's been about 2 weeks.
yes, we do.
So I can grab this first one here. It actually has a question for the both of us, and it kind of trails along behind the point that I was talking about with generators, which is I was just mentioning generators. So this also mentions generators. Worst segue ever. All right, let's keep going. So this one comes from Hakim, Hakim, Hakim. First of all, just wants to say, really like the show. And he's a console player. I like this. He says, I played
Nice.
Diablo 3 ROS on PS4, in parentheses, legit,
Yeah.
which is a designation you kind of have to make.
Yeah, when you don't have, like a 35,000, DPS Azure Wrath with 6 gym slots in it.
So the hacked items there, if any of you viewers or listeners haven't seen, just kind of like Google, I don't even know, Diablo 3 console items or something. There's just ridiculous stuff out there. It'll make you throw up. But back to this feedback, he says he is hooked pretty badly. But the question is this. Most high-end builds don't use primary skills at all because they're too weak. So which primary skill would you like to see tweaked and buffed up so that they can be used in endgame builds? For him or her, they would like to see the wizard's electrocute be made into a channeling skill similar to Ray of Frost and Disintegrate. Not as strong as those because with a Mycon's Ball of Hate and a Velvet Cameral, it would have the potential to rip through 20 enemies at once. It sounds amazing, actually. I think 400 to 500% damage would be perfect. But anyways, I'm rambling. What would you like to see? So I'll throw it over to you first.
For that, I guess I want, with a question like that, I want to, touch on the design philosophy behind it. They've, kind of modeled Diablo 3. They want it to kind of be a little bit of a roller coaster where you have, full resources, you do a huge amount of damage, and then once you run out of your resources, you kind of putter down and you're in this like recovery mode. And it's about getting your resources back up. And so your damage is constantly kind of doing this, so that way your actual damage, kind of is the average. But of course, we as players wanting to go through and break the system, we want to cut that primary skill and that resource regeneration completely out of the window, and we just want our DPS to be this the entire time. So I guess the devs kind of acknowledge that, and they put items into the game. It's kind of like what monks with the Sunwuko builds that are going crazy lately is all about, is just spamming Wave of Light and having enough regeneration through cooldown skills or passively to just be able to keep up the constant spam. But I like, in just, I guess this isn't really like answering the question, but I like what they're doing with the Demon Hunter multi-shot set, even though they said that they're still working on it, so it might change from how we saw it at BlizzCon, but it gave a massive damage boost to your generators and allowed them to actually generate discipline as well as hatred, and then improve the amount of damage that they did as well as what multi-shot did by the amount of discipline you have. So you can go through and sitting around with a ton of discipline, and you're getting plus 600% weapon damage on your generators. For something like Bolas or Entangling Shot is huge. That will make it on par with something along the lines of Cluster Arrow. So that's making items that might up the damage of the generators, or just making like kind of like the generation aspect more interesting would be a good way of doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you look at generators, you kind of they're like a necessary evil early on, and then you want to get away from them as quickly as possible to just do, like you said, to output more damage. But I think I really like generators when they do other things besides just generate. So what I'm thinking about, for instance, is like Slash with Electrify, which also has a 25% chance to stun. Something like that interests me because now I can start thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to want to keep this generator on here because it's a way to stun, and maybe that's a way to proc my Haunt of Vaxo. Maybe that's a way to proc, something else that's in my build that's going to, once that stun hits, that I'm going to gain an extra benefit, like in Ancient Parthian Defenders, if you have stun enemies, you gain some damage mitigation from that. So I think maybe a way to kind of loop keeping them in is to make items and other things that are more compelling and require, or at least have the potential to be synced up or synthesized with generators and what they can do. But I guess another thing that kind of ties into that, for instance, is the same kind of proc coefficients that you get from generators. They're usually higher. And with Slash, for instance, keep going back to Crusaders because that's what I know right now. Slash for them is one of their highest skills that has a proc coefficient. So when you're teaming that up with the Marinite gem and you're going with Slash with Zeal, which is the holy one, then you get your holy spec right there because you have your holy gem that's procking all the time from your holy generator, and then you get to unleash Condemn, which is a holy skill. So it kind of ties everything together, and that's actually a build that runs a generator almost always, although maybe not by the end of the season. Hint, hint.
Hmm.
But it's kind of cool to see that you can utilize them in a way that maybe they're not putting out a ton of damage, but they're doing other things for you that help you either do more damage or stay alive to do more damage.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess that would be one way of doing it, is making it have a function other than just the generation, whether it's, procking, or have the stun, or maybe it gives you like a minimal damage buff, something that, you know, it still gives you a reason to use it outside of the fact that it just generates more resources.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything right now is, all the builds are, how can I cut the generators out of my build? Because that's it's always the weakest aspect of your build, and you want to be able to get by without having to use it.
Exactly. And I think maybe not to belabor the point, but I actually don't like the idea of kind of having these items that enable all of the runes on generators, because what's the likelihood that you're going to take that item? Probably not very high, because you already
Yeah.
don't want to take a generator. So throwing like awesomeness on an item is going to further kind of tie your hand. You really want a generator to work, but not have to take an item which is potentially not going to be as strong as something else I could take that would just buff up my spender, which is, the max or the crux of the damage that I do. So I feel like trying to make them cool that way is like maybe going the wrong way about it, because there's more potential to just bake in stuff to the skills themselves to be good, instead of tying it to an item. It's like a level of commitment too far.
Yeah, and some of those ones is just like, even if it unlocks all the runes and it's still not competitive, then something's wrong there.
That's it. Yeah, that says everything.
Mm-hmm. Ah, let's see. I think that one sums it about up for that question. There's this one that we got, is not an email that we got, but was a question that was actually posed on Twitter. This one comes from Edgar. He's been a long time listener of the show, and always is asking us questions, interacting with us on Twitter.
Also goes by Alienationer.
Yeah, that's true. Alienationer. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
He he wanted to ask, this one's a lore question, so obviously I have to go with it.
Nice.
His question was, what happened to the Black Soulstone fragment that Tyrael had, during Act 5? When Malthael goes through and destroys the Black Soulstone, kind of absorbs it into his body, what happens afterwards? And the question, the answer obviously is, we're not quite sure. I'm going to imagine that, since it was just like it's like a little sliver, like a shaving of the crystal itself, that it's not going to have a lot going for it anyways. It was more just a connection to the Black Soulstone. It wouldn't, even though it looked huge in the game, that was just for game purposes. But in the actual lore story, it's going to be just a tiny fragment. And it was just to allow us access to see what was going on with the Soulstone itself. And so there's no aspect of Diablo is contained within inside of it, and it itself probably doesn't really have that much power. So with the main Soulstone being destroyed, I imagine any of its power would kind of be drained or useless at this point, especially with I guess it's kind of most people just accept that with the Soulstone destroyed, Diablo is now free anyways, and that he's not kind of trapped within the shards.
Mm-hmm.
There is a little bit of question, when we were talking about the anniversary stream, that came up, when they asked the question, well, what happens to Diablo now? Is it the primeval, or was it separated back into the 7 evils when the Black Soulstone was destroyed? And they answered, if he got free from the Black Soulstone when it was shattered, it would still be as the primeval. And so it's just, who knows? He could still be locked away in multifacets of the stone. But as far as Tyrael's sliver, that's probably the last we'll ever hear about it.
Very interesting. Would you, just a follow-up question, I'm always like fascinated by this stuff, would you like to see a book before the expansion to kind of like bridge time, or would you rather see the expansion and then a book that explains the time in between? If we were to get another expansion.
Um, the way that they've done it so far is we get the book first.
Hmm.
We get the book before the expansion, and I like that because it gives me something to do while I wait, and it will have more context if you read it before you play, and so you'll understand the things that led up to the point that you are in the game instead of already seeing everything that happens up to its conclusion and then going back and filling in, well, what happened in between.
I got you.
It's not as interesting or as compelling. So I definitely I it seems as just their status quo for all of their game franchises right now. If there is another expansion, we will get another book beforehand, and I actually would also like to see another one of their kind of kind of concentrated lore books, one of their source books, like the Book of Tyrael and the Book of Cain. I would like to see another one of those.
Whose book would that be? Just thinking of like the characters left now.
The Book of Lorath, the Book of the Herodrum, a new Herodric text.
I would almost like to see a Book of Malthael.
Yeah,
I feel like that'd be intriguing.
Yeah, what is it that he learned? Studying, because obviously he studied humanity, he studied the Soul Stones, he studied the World Stone, all that good stuff. He was probably one of the most knowledgeable people in the entire in all of creation within the game itself, so it'd be interesting his thoughts.
Oh, exciting. I love like theory crafting the future of whatever. So it's always exciting to think what could happen. All right, I suppose, was there anything else on that, or can we jump to the next one?
Oh, let's hit up the next one.
Cool. I have one here from Diego, and he is saying, sup fellas, of course. He is looking to understand why there's no sprinter/speedrun conquest this season. And it's a question that I hadn't seen asked much, but it's actually kind of a compelling question because speedruns are a huge part of kind of the gaming community. And they're taking off, especially on Twitch, if you know kind of who to watch or what games you're into. I mean, Super Mario 64 as a speedrun has gotten like New York Times coverage. Some of the stuff that Cosmo Wright has done as well has gotten big coverage, and Speed Demos Archive and all that stuff. So Speedruns Live, if you're into any of that, like there's so much out there now.
I'm still partial to Super Metroid speedruns, but that's just me.
They're actual thing. Like watching the controller cams on those before we like derail is just insane. Pretty much any SNES game is insane.
Yeah. Especially because with the Super Metroid one that they've been doing a lot, because this is one of those games that's just been done to death, is they'll have races. They'll do like the 4 people going through and doing the race, and it's funny seeing like just like the slightest change in strategy, because this guy can make it that jump at just like a frame ahead of it, or they have like the one, like you do the dash jump across the one room and no
like
far,
clip
and
something and
if you time it perfectly, you can get through the door without having to stop and go down to the bottom level. And it's just like those, it can shave off like a full minute from the run. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. And this, like that excitement that we're exhibiting right now is kind of why Diego's a bit bummed out that the Sprinter and Speedrun didn't come back, because he thinks that it's more compelling than something like a just reach grid or Rift 35 or collect 50 million gold streak. And it requires teamwork, specific gear, and practice. So it's one that you have to commit to. I mean, you and I ourselves, we're spending multiple attempts, multiple conversations trying to figure out where can we shave time, what can we do better, trying to get good group comps, good class comps, etc. So, it is definitely one of those conquests where it requires you to play the game differently, requires you to think about the game differently. So I kind of am on the same page as Diego here. I wish it was one that became a perennial, or I don't even know what the right word is there, one that would reoccur with each season, or maybe every other season. I don't know, maybe people get tired of it having to, if they want every conquest, having to grind that one out every season. But I think they should use, seasons to test out new ones and see which ones are popular. And if there's enough of an outcry, then maybe we will get it back for season 3.
Yeah, maybe. is that they did have talked about that. They're not opposed to bringing some of the old conquests back, as long as it's not, one of the ones that promotes exploiting, like the first to 70 and such, the boring ones.
Yeah, yeah. I think we'll refine that pool as time goes on, find the best ones. But I
Hmm.
mean, I think that right now we'll have to see what happens with it. Obviously, people have gotten all five at this point, so they're not as hard. Because the Speed Racer one, I don't think anyone had dinged for quite some time early in the season.
Hmm.
But I was going to kind of lob on a point that the Worlds Apart, the kill all the bosses in 20 minutes after starting a game, that one kind of seems similar in thought and process to the speedrunner, the sprinter.
It's like more of a refined one.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I guess that's true. Yeah, if you think about it, it kind of takes, you still have to travel all over the game, but you're not doing everything. You're not going through all the quests and stuff. Yeah, that's a good
Yep.
point. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's one that is not as, ridiculously dependent upon RNG and good map rolls.
Exactly.
You have
Exactly.
a lot more control over your ability to do all of these within a certain time frame, because a lot of what you're going to be spending doing is killing the boss, not looking for it.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, because most of the maps to get to those bosses you kind of already know, besides like
Hmm.
Ager or something.
Yeah.
Word. All right. That's it from this one.
All right. Moving on, we've got another one from a regular writer in Mad Hamster. His thought was more, somewhat of a question, more of just like thinking out loud. Is he's going through all of his like 200 plus legendaries from his season stash, rolling over into non-season, and he was just kind of thinking out loud that something that he notices, he can't compare the item in his inbox to the item that he's wearing. You just see the stats. It doesn't actually bring up the comparison like it does if it's in your inventory or in your stash space. So when it's in your inbox, you can't compare. And he just was wanting to know, it's like, do they leave it out on purpose? Is there some reason to that? It's like he could always, of course, just, check it, loot it, compare it, and then delete it or salvage it. But he just wanted to be something a bit more, to speed up the process of having to go through and check everything that he's got. Is this one better? Is that one better? To him, it was just kind of like removing one step from making it such a huge task.
Yeah, it seems like you really either have to commit to pulling everything out and then going over them one by one, or just saying like, you know what, I'm just gonna trash it all. Like, whatever.
Hmm.
At this point, I'm not gonna do seasons or non-seasonal, or I don't care about half the stuff in here.
Yep.
But yeah, no, for those people, especially as seasons continue to go, we're gonna have these really well geared characters by the end of each season. And if you do want some of that continuity, some of that combination of pieces, then you're going to want to be able to compare or at least hold on to a few things that you think might translate over. Because the next level at that point is saying, okay, I have this on my seasonal. Let me look at my non seasonal and then do like math in my head, which is forbidden, of course, and figure out, is this going to be an upgrade for that non seasonal? Should I hold it for the whole season, etc.?
Hmm. Yep.
Kind of goes back to the idea. I don't know how I feel about this, but I want to throw it out there to see what you think. Where people were saying they want the ability every now and again to just send stuff to non seasonal during the course of a season.
Um. I guess that in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't have much of an impact as long as they have something in place to block the season only items from
Mm-hmm.
being sent.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, there's like really nothing wrong with it. I guess the only thing is just going to be, a technical limitation. Is it going to be worth the investment in order to make it where you have a periodic capability of sending a season item to a non-season character without that full rollover? You
Right.
know.
And I could also see it too as well. I was gonna say I could see it being kind of not exploited but used cleverly as extra stash space. But if it only goes one way, if you can only put it on from season to non-seasonal and not send it back from non-season to seasonal,
Hmm.
then it's not even extra stash space. It's just you sent it away. I mean, I guess in a way it's kind of extra because it's not clogging up your space waiting for the
Hmm.
season to roll over. But it's not like saying I have a whole new inventory on non-seasonal that I'm also using for seasonal.
Yeah, I really see the only reason of it not being done is just technical limitations.
Yeah. Word. All right. I'm gonna actually Jay Wilson this thing right here and take
Oh,
another from
doubling up.
Alienationer. Yeah, he wrote in again, and he said, "Hey guys, I was wondering if you knew the answer to this question. He's seeing on videos in YouTube that players have both white and yellow crit numbers. However, he personally only sees yellow numbers in his own. I was wondering what the white crits were, if it was area damage perhaps, but he said that wouldn't make sense since it should be the same numbers across the board for area damage. And he says he has about 50% crit hit chance. So again, just kind of going on area damage, he's saying he's bound to see the whites sometimes, but he doesn't think it's area damage. So what's going on with this? I was thinking, because I saw this one come in and I was trying to contemplate like what that would be. I turned off all my numbers on my game at this point, so I only see the crits because I like big yellow numbers. But I can't help but wonder if it's just dots, because dots never crit anymore. Or, I mean, they used to crit, but it would just still stay white, and you would just see a bigger white number flashing every time it updated. But I'm thinking, go ahead.
I want to say that it might still be dots, because I believe some dots still work on that chance per tick to crit.
I thought they rolled them in, isn't, because it wasn't the whole like idea that they took like rend and they were like, we're gonna calculate your percent chance to crit and also bake that into the rend damage, so it's just doing a flat damage every time that you apply it, so you don't have to like keep fishing for critical rend applications.
Yeah. Then I don't know.
Well, maybe area damage. I think, and like to some degree, it could just be that they left their normal numbers on, so as they attack, they're getting some crits and some non-crits. I'd like to see a screenshot, or maybe if you want to send in one of those videos, Alienationer, then we could review it further. Take it for further review. That was my best referee voice from the NFL.
I would not get that.
All right, moving right along.
All right. Next one. This is another one that we got from 3 Days JPT. He had a couple questions. Just he was going through and thinking out loud again for some ideas that he had. Was about, what about having a legendary gem that its elevated bonus gives the same effect as Ring of Royal Grandeur, or maybe a super rare affix or item like the Ramalama Ding Dong's gift, but just more rare. Something that allows you to have that ability, or to have certain items that count as a piece from 2 different sets. So you might have shoulders, which counts as, Ogchild's as well as Marauders. Something that you can go through and equip in order to get multiple sets, linked on, to just basically allow you to use multiple set bonuses at once.
That's interesting. I think I would love to see some like crazy, because here's the thing though. Gems have to be guaranteed, legendary gems have to be guaranteed delivered through Greater Rifts. That's the way they're worked into the game right now. It's the way that makes sense in terms of acquiring them, because...
Except your first time finding a Boon of the Hoarder.
True. Actually, so let's consider that. So there is something that's really cool, like the Boon of the Hoarder, which obviously has a pretty... game. Well, I don't know if I want to label it game change, but it definitely has a big effect on the rest of your game time, because you no longer really have to worry about gold as long as you equip that. So it's kind of a big deal in terms of getting it, and it's kind of left up to RNG in order to get it. So I guess that's another thing. Could they just had a huge idea? So what if they tie Ubers, because we were trying to come up with something better for Ubers.
I already like where this is going.
Yes, like make it so that there's the organ drop, sure, like still have that be your Hellfire Amulet, Hellfire Ring delivery system, but what if we tie a few gems, legendary gems, into that system, and it just makes you want to actually do the Ubers. They're now endgame. They have these crazy gems that you can get from them, almost like your torches of old in D2, and now they're more relevant all of a sudden.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. That is, I do like that. At least tying in some other system in there. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, because obviously you kind of have to go through and do obviously it can't stack with the Ring of Royal Grandeur because then
Oh yeah,
then
no.
that gets ridiculous.
That'd be
Um,
insane.
yeah, but I guess at that one, is it what you have to look at what does that do? Now instead of wearing a Ring of Royal Grandeur, I can equip a gem that has the same effect. Does it have any other bonuses to it? Is there any kind of like damage or survivability bonus on it, or is it just that effect? Because then at that point, I'm giving up one of my legendary gems to equip, say, an SOJ. So
Hmm.
that way I can have a Unity and an SOJ on at the same time instead of a Unity and a Ring of Royal Grandeur. Um, and at that point, is that worth giving up is it worth giving up something like Bane of the Powerful or Bane of the Trapped or a gem of Facious Toxin? Yeah, can't speak. Um, at that point, and it's like, is that an interesting decision? Is there going to be a build or scenario where an Ancient Stone of Jordan won't compare to giving up a Bane of the Trapped or one of those other gems? So I think if you take it from that point of view, that makes it an interesting decision. But then it also makes it so you have to balance gems and rings to one another instead of just balancing rings and balancing gems.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting way to complicate the system, and I feel like we're probably headed that way just from how we hear them talk about the possibilities for legendary gems. Tossing the gem of ease into weapons for the first time, and starting to play around with some ideas of maybe we can put these things into different sockets or have different uses or just keep creating new and exciting ones.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the parts of the game that I potentially see a lot of excitement, not only in the actual powers once we get them, but also the delivery too. So again, making maybe campaign mode have a new use and purpose for it, making the Ubers have a new use and purpose,
Yep.
etc.
The campaign mode, you're probably never going to see have any use or purpose outside of like a little one-time thing like the conquest, or maybe you have to complete the game in order to get like X legendary gem or something like that. It's never going to be. They're never going to do anything to continue to draw you into it. And
Right,
they've
right, right.
set that for something that you mentioned earlier on when we were talking about the torment difficulties. Because it separates the user base.
True, true.
Yep.
Yeah, those are
Um,
just throwing
yep.
something out there.
Oh yeah, and I guess to address the second part of his question about an item that can be a part of two sets, that again is just going to be linked up with like Ring of Royal Grandeurs, and you're getting multiple set bonuses across multiple sets and such. And this is a point that I talked, or we all talked with, or that I was very against in our roundtable discussion over on the most recent episode of Scythe and Shield, which we should go through, and I'm just now realizing we should be plugging.
Yeah,
That
that was a thing.
Yeah, DJ Dread Scythe went through, and on his Scythe and Shield podcast, I believe it's episode 18, he did a roundtable discussion with a whole bunch of previous guests and other people from the community. And this was one of the big topics of conversation that we had with, I think it was JC Monkey,
Hmm.
brought up the point of like being able to equip, like reducing all of the set bonuses down to like a 3-piece or 4-piece set bonus, so you can equip multiple sets all at the same time. And that just kind of comes down to having your cake and eating it too. It removes any decision that you have as far as gearing yourself, because I get to equip everything. I don't actually have to go through and give up something to equip this set, or I have to give up a Stone of Jordan in order to equip a Ring of Royal Grandeur, so I can have a Tasker and Theo and still have my 6-piece set bonus.
Right.
It's things like that it makes hard decisions is just a good aspect of game design, because it makes you more interested, more invested in your character, in what it is that you're doing, in the gear. And that's just one of those ones where obviously we all would love to be able to equip every single set at one time, but it makes for boring gameplay, unfortunately.
I agree. I'm just thinking too of the nightmare of displaying an item that would somehow work for two sets, because I just look at the like you look at a set item and some of them don't even fit on screen already, like friggin' Roland's chess piece. It's like
Yeah.
already off the top of the screen, and then you're like, okay, it also works for this set too. It's like, where does that even go? It's just like you cannot use this item unless you have a second screen.
Yeah.
Oh boy. But no.
Minimum of a 4K monitor.
Exactly. All right. Well, we could jump to the next one here. I'm continuing on the conquest feed here a little bit. We got a question from a Woodbite. Or actually, not even a question, just a little bit of a tip here. He says, "Good day, mates," as my adopted countryman would say, or "Sup, fellas. I've seen the ruins of Corvus being used for gold generation. All those scarabs generate a lot of gold, and this is in relation to the Avarice slash Avaricia conquest, which you need to gain a 50 million gold streak in order to complete. I tagged this one for feedback because I actually was just seeing yesterday on Twitter, the Reddit Diablo account put up a little highlight on a post from user. I didn't look at the name before, but it's Horny Poop. I'm sorry if that offends anyone.
Uh-huh.
But he or she put up a quick guide talking about the fact that they were able to get this conquest done, and saying that they also did use the ruins of Corvus, and they also used a couple of things like Sunkeeper, Goldskin, Leorix with emeralds, some Paragon points put into Gold Find, and an amulet with a lot of Gold Find on it as its secondary. So there's some support out there. Once people start to figure out these conquests, we'll probably start to see a lot of videos and forum posts and things. But if you want a head start on this one, it's called How to Avarice, and again, it's by Horny Poop. So check that out on Reddit Diablo.
Sorry, I'm just responding to something in chat.
It's all right. It's all right.
It was just I think this one is just an interesting one to just bring up real quick. It's the real Matthews is just talking about how honestly that there should be a Ramalana Ding Dong for jewelry too, because it wouldn't be terribly OP. And this is one thing that I know if you've been listening to the podcast that I like to hark on quite a bit, is that sockets are now, with the addition of legendary gems, sockets are now mandatory for every single piece of gear.
Yeah.
That sockets can roll on. And when it's mandatory, and it is one of those deciding factors between whether the item is crap or not, it's no longer an interesting decision. There's no I'm losing something, or I'm giving up something, or is this balanced with something? No, it's just flat out better than anything else that can be rolled on that piece of gear, so you need to get sockets on it. And at that point, if it's mandatory, just put it on the item. You know, they finally kind of conceded that a little bit on weapons, because it's just so the power difference between a socket and not a socket on a weapon is greater than any other item now besides jewelry, and so they finally conceded that, and they gave us a Ramalani's gift to add a socket to it. We now need to get a gift for other pieces of gear. We're at that point. It's just, we need some way of going through and doing it, so please, I'm begging you, patch 2.2, give us that item so we can do it, because it's just sockets aren't interesting anymore. It's like maybe on jewelry I could see it because you're having to give up like a main stat or something like that, but on chest and pants and helm, just give us an item that will make it, an auto include. So just I would love that.
Fair enough.
Yep.
I like collecting more things, so I'm never going to say no to putting another thing in the game to get.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
Were there any other feedback things here you wanted to pick up before moving on?
Not any ones that I think that we really have time for without cutting out items of the week, if we want to go through and grab into that.
Yes, I think we will take this time to transition into items of the week. But before we go, I do want to say that we want to start to solicit people sending in their builds or their ideas that are more associated with improving the power of their characters, kind of tying into what we were just talking about before we started the feedback section with some of the tips and tricks for Season 2, etc. As we get deeper into the season, people will probably start having, reroll questions, questions on how to make their monk or whatever better. Monk is like the best thing ever this season, of course. So we want to be a source of information for you guys. So if you have questions regarding how to improve your characters, maybe like even what slot to gamble next, send in like an email to westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. Throw your battle tag or your profile, a link to your profile preferably. Throw that in there, and then maybe just a couple of questions, and we'll take the time to highlight one or two. It'll mean that we probably do less feedback in general, but we'll highlight more of those on screen and go over some cool things, and hopefully that will help a
Mm-hmm.
numerous amount of users, because then it could be general tips for monks or general tips for crusaders, etc.
Yeah, yeah. So send us your questions.
Word up. All right, let's hop into items of the week then. Coming up on screen, you should be seeing a Madstone. Speaking of monks, I picked this one up. We actually only had 3 items of the week over the course of 2 weeks, so I think people were probably just taking breaks, getting ready for season 2.
I'm not terribly surprised. And then it's like you're going through, and after the season's over, it's like, are you really farming? What do you have that's going to be better than what you already found? In the previous months.
Exactly, it's not as many things to get excited about. But I did at least want to go and highlight the ones we did get. So for everyone that submitted, you will be shown and showcased here. This is an Ancient Madstones coming from Jeff, and this is an interesting piece. I don't think it fits into any of the meta builds for monks right now, but it might be a good piece to start out with, talking about early seasons, where the power on it is that 7-sided strike applies Exploding Palm, and of course Exploding Palm is all the rage these days because of Gungdo gear and
Yep.
the synergy with the Sun Wukong set and all that good stuff. I think because people are just happy to run Exploding Palm on their build anyways, like there's, 7-sided strike is really a cool monk skill. I think it's got a lot of flavor to it.
It's one of those iconic skills. It's one of the first things that we saw of the monk.
Absolutely. And it made me really excited to want to play a monk, which was actually for a while my second most played class back in vanilla. But yeah, this Madstone, I think it's decent. It's got 957 dexterity. He rerolled an affix to get 5.5% critical hit chance. It's got increased wave of light damage by 11%. Cold resistance for that stacking resistance on the secondary there, and then of course that 7-sided strike power applying the Exploding Palm. So I don't know. It'd be cool to see some builds, maybe even if it's not like super endgamey or whatever, that utilize this. But I think you were saying there are a couple of other helm options for monks, right? Like Zokrin's Gaze and
For the Sun Wukong's, it's pretty much the Zokirin's Gaze is like the end all be all, because it allows you to cast Wave of Light at range.
Gotcha. Word. All right, let's move on to the next item here. We have a screen capture, sort of, from the console. This one was submitted by J Shiz My Niz. These names. This is an Ancient Ring of Rogrander. Again on console, which is pretty cool. It's got 593 intelligence, 7% attack speed, so that's maxed out. 11,472 life per hit. So insane. 33% gold from monsters for a secondary. Of course, the natural Ring of Rogrander power for reducing those sets, and a socket. And it doesn't look like any. I'm not sure exactly when you can tell what's been re-rolled on console, but it doesn't look like anything's been re-rolled on this. So,
Yep, I do not know. So I'll just say that it looks like nothing's been changed.
I don't want to get called out again.
Yep.
And this is actually something I was contemplating. With that bonus for ancient items boosting life per hit on Rings of Rogrander to just insane amounts, I'm almost wondering if your build really doesn't need attack speed, like maybe you just roll the attack speed into whatever else you need, like a critical or a cooldown reduction or critical damage or critical hit chance.
Yeah, because I mean, for even going through and rolling at the higher greater rifts, it's almost like your life on hit becomes valued less because you're taking so much damage. You can't really compete. You can't gear to compete with the amount of damage coming in and out, anyways. It's just that like 11,000 on a single item is about all that you would really need.
Yeah, that's true. You don't need it anywhere else at that point.
Yeah, at that point you're golden.
Yeah, that's an interesting consideration. And last but not least, we have I think this is German. It's submitted by Dark Nomad, an Ancient Furnace. Gotta love those Ancient Furnaces. It's got 4,193.1 DPS, 8% Schaden, which is this is so awesome. That's your damage affix. Looks like strength. Yeah, it's on a barb, so it looks like 1,455 Stelilio?
Stark.
Strength, and then re-rolled. That's gotta be cooldown reduction as in a fix.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Okay, I'm hoping that's cooldown reduction.
Yep.
9% on that, so you could even take that up to 10% for weapons,
Mm-hmm.
and 50% perfect roll on the damage to elites.
Yep.
And
Which
looks,
apparently, I'm going to guess that elite in German is Elite Ginger. Gingner.
elites Gidgner.
Yeah. Dear, I wanna try Dear Schmelzofen.
That sounds right. That looks right to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
For the furnace
furnace.
there. Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Oh, I went to the wrong screen there.
Yeah. So one of our German listeners, or I guess it'd be more German watchers, if someone could go through and tell us how to actually pronounce those things, it would be much appreciated.
Indeed.
Uh-huh. I know Zweihand. I know that one. Two-handed.
There
I know that one.
you go.
Yeah.
Word. So that brings us to the end of our items of the week. That brings us to the end of an episode. I can't believe how the time actually flew by here.
Yeah.
I will admittedly admit, wow, that I'm in a bit of a time warp because I just don't know days or anything anymore with all the freaking Diablo. But that being said, what are your plans for the next couple of days until we get the show going next week? What are you hoping to tackle going forward?
I have to say sorry to Twiz Eldorian, Jimmy and Balrog fan, but I don't think I'm going to be getting any practice in Heroes for next week.
Yeah.
It's all going to be Diablo with the exception of Saturday. My hobby shop that I go to play Warhammer, it's their 1 year anniversary.
Oh boy.
So Saturday is pretty much all Warhammer, and then in the evening we're doing Call of Cthulhu. So yeah, that's going to be my outside of Diablo nerd day on Saturday.
Excellent, man. Good luck.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do anything exciting for? Is it just more games or free stuff or?
For the anniversary, it's a bunch of like events. So we break the rules that you have in order to make your armies and such. So for like 40K, it's called a night fight. They have this one, like super badass unit called Imperial Knights. They're just they're called Titans. Because they're just so powerful, and I think we've got like 10 people signed up, so 10 people are going to be bringing them in. They're all all these people have put the time and effort to actually paint them and make them look nice, and it's a free for all. And they just go in, and it's hilarious because once they actually start fighting one another, they both kill each other. so one might kill the other, but because it's such a massive unit, they go like nuclear when they die. And so it just explodes, and half the time takes out the person that killed it.
Dude, that sounds awesome.
Yep. And then for fantasy, we're kind of throwing the army lists out the window, and we're playing with just monsters. So we're calling it the Monster Mash. We're just having all these big hulking, just dragons and sphinxes and just like war beasts and such, all just gonna meet in the center and just obliterate one another. It's a lot of fun.
Cool, man. I'm very excited for you. Word. So yeah, I guess we'll just keep grinding until next week. I'm gonna go ahead and start our outro music here and swap on over to our little splash screen and say hello and goodbye to all of you. Aloha gets it done in one word. Thank you so much for joining us on episode 39, which I now know the name of. It's A Glorious Season Awaits.
And you now know the reference.
And yes, thank you, Carl Sagan. Bringing it back full circle.
Yes, so go and rewatch the original Cosmos.
I'm on it.
Yes,
I got a lot of free time.
That is your mission, should you choose to accept it and you do not have a choice.
I accept. Your mission, listeners and viewers, is to follow the Westmarch Workshop on Twitter, the WM Workshop. If you want to catch the stream live, it's every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. EST, 6 p.m. PST, here on twitch.tv/Leviathan111, which you can follow for notifications on when we go live, too, for the pre-show. What else? We have Twitters ourselves. I am S.A. Stewart111. That beautifully bearded man over there that you can't see anymore, I'm sorry, deprived you of this, is 9ballgamer on Twitter. And yeah, BlizzPro, Diablo.blizzpro.com. News, reviews, interviews, all sorts of good stuff over there. But otherwise, man, season 2, I'm hype. Get hype.
Season 2. We're gonna be playing it right after this ends. So should you.
Amen.